Welcome to today's session on the novel And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. We will be discussing chapters 1 to 4, the setup and accusation of this particular novel. Moving on, I would like to begin with a quote from the text by Justice Wargrave, who says this later in the novel. The legal life's narrowing. I am a crime artist. I want to commit a murder myself. The discussion here is can justice exist outside the law? Who determines guilt when the legal system fails? Giving an introduction to Agatha Christie, the author, she's called the Queen of Crime, and she's the best selling novelist of all time, outsold only by the Bible and Shakespeare. The context for the novel is that it's written in 1939 on the brink of World War II, and there is a shift in tone. This novel marks a departure from cozy mysteries like Miss Marple to a darker one, a psychological thriller. And this is called a closed circle mystery because the killer is one among the group. 1939, A World on the Edge. Here there is a pre-war anxiety, especially in Britain. The looming threat of World War II created an atmosphere of suspicion and fatalism. Britain was still deeply stratified. The novel uses characters from various classes like a doctor, aristocrat, secretary, servant, general, so that it can critique the social hierarchies and the isolation of the island. There is a storm there, and the island is an isolated place, Soldier Island, that mirrors the isolation of Britain facing the Nazi threat. Here's what a closed circle mystery means that is introduced in this novel: isolation, no detective, deterministic. Everybody is isolated, no escape, nobody can come in as well, and there is no detective. They have to investigate themselves who murdered who. And then the deterministic way is that the nursery rhyme on the wall predicts the manner of every death. Here are few key literary features: omniscient limited narration. The narrator hops between heads, giving us access to inner thoughts but withholding the crucial secret, the killer's identity. Second, free indirect discourse. We hear the characters' private justifications and fears directly. Thirdly, the social mask. Characters initially present polite, but when they are put under pressure, their true self comes out. First chapter is all about the trap is being set. Each guest receives a tailored invitation to visit the island, and it's more of a job, a free holiday, a reunion with an old friend. Everything triggers what they long for. Sometimes it's greed, it's nostalgia. Every invitation is tailored to each person according to their way, their mindset, that it's very convincing for them to travel. And we have a host who's unknown, UN Owen, which is the homophone for unknown, and he is always absent. And the first impression is that Agatha Christie introduces each character in their normal environments like train or car, so that she can emphasize that each person who received the invitation to travel to the island was from different class groups. And when they reach the island, they are all equalized. So I'm introducing the part one of 10 guests: Justice Wargrave, who is a retired judge, who is authoritative, reptilian, and calculating. Vera Clayton, who's the secretary of games mistress, who is always anxious, haunted by a past event. Third character, Philip Lombard, who is a mercenary, who is wolf-like, arrogant person who has a gun with him. Emily Brent, who's a religious spinster, self-righteous, judgmental, rigid person. General MacArthur, who is a retired military, lonely, resigned, fatalistic, and Dr. Armstrong, who is a Harley Street doctor, successful but nervous, recovering alcoholic. Chapter 2 is Crossing the Styx. Styx is a river. The boat ride crosses. So that is metaphorical of them leaving their civilized place and moving to a different place. And the house they reach in the island is modern, bright, and open, no dark corners like another mystery play. Agatha Christie's brings a house that is very bright. And the irony is, the lack of dark corners suggests safety, but actually, there is nowhere to hide. The terror is out in the open. There is a poem, nursery rhyme in every room, a childish decoration, but that predicts their death. The structure of the nursery rhyme. For example, 10 little soldier boys went out to dine. One choked his little self, and then there were 9. The poem serves 3 functions. Foreshadowing, that it reveals the method of death. Second, the pacing, it creates a countdown structure. Third, atmosphere, because it infuses the death with grotesque childish mockery. Chapter 3 is the voice. There is a scene after a sophisticated dinner, a disembodied voice halts the conversation. The indictment is specific names, dates, and victims are read out. The social masks are ripped off instantly. The gramophone says, you did this, you did that, with specific dates and names and the victim. And use of gramophone is a mechanical reproduction, makes the accusation feel cold, inhuman, and objective straight to them. And right in the middle of the dinner, each character shaken to the core when they listen to what really happened was truth, and it was told by a gramophone. And now they give different reaction. I have split into 3: denial, indifference, fear. Most characters immediately deny the claims. I was doing my duty, says Wargrave and Armstrong. But there is the indifference with Lombard because he admits it freely, saying, I left them to die. And Marston shows zero remorse, saying bad luck. Their death is their bad luck. And there is also fear in Vera and MacArthur because they are deeply shaken, hinting that their guilt is closer to the surface. So, the nature of the crimes. Beyond the law, none of the crimes mentioned are legally prosecutable because Marston is negligent, Rogers is also negligent because of speeding and medicine withheld, respectively. Professional failure, Dr. Armstrong, drunk surgery. Intentional inaction, that is also not legally prosecutable, according to Agatha Christie, because Clayton dies of drowning and Lombard dies of abandonment. Chapter 4, Anthony Marston. The global youth is described as a young god. He represents vitality, physical beauty, and a complete lack of conscience. The executionist, he chokes on his drink immediately after admitting his crime without remorse. So this matches the rhyme, one choked his little self, as told by the nursery rhyme on the wall. The significance is the most alive character dies first. The young person, the energetic person dies first. That is the beauty of Agatha Christie's writing, bringing in something that's uncanny. Here's the structural progression of these chapters. First, introduction, establishment of normalcy and setting. Second, accusation, that is chapter 3, the voice, destruction of order. Then execution, chapter 4, the first death, reality sets in. Themes established, administering justice when the state fails, is vigilantism justified? The killer acts as a judge, jury, and executioner. Second theme is the public versus private self because the isolation is forcing the characters to drop their true self facets, and we see the ugly truth beneath the politeness. There is a different self coming up. And fate and determinism. The nursery rhyme implies they have no free will, their end is already written. These are two topics for critical discussion in groups. You can write it down, you can discuss with your peers. Topic 1, hierarchy of guilt. Are some characters guiltier than others? Does Marston, reckless driving, deserve the same fate as Lombard, leaving men to die? And the second topic is the setting. How does the modern electric lit house change the nature of the fear compared to a dark old castle typically seen in other things? Why did Christie choose this? Next class, select one character, write a 200-word inner monologue capturing their thoughts immediately after Marston dies. Focus on their specific denial mechanism. And also don't forget to read chapters 5 to 8. That's about paranoia. The focus is breakdown of trust. Look for first alliance formations. Thanks for joining for today's class. If you have any doubts, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.